Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the dev server looking at a new Israeli ground vehicle that is going to be coming to the game in the next major update. This is the Magach 6B. It's going to be the top of the line for the left-hand line, at least for now. Remember, there are a decent amount of Israeli tanks in the files and also announced through the devblog, which aren't available on this dev server, so there'll probably be something after this just to understand that. And also a lot of these Israeli vehicles aren't in tip-top shape right now, meaning that they may not be fully complete, so just to let you know that. But this is the Magach 6B. It's an M60 with some extra bells and whistles, which is quite nice, at rank 6, 8.7. The vehicle has access to the 105mm Sharia cannon and a ton of ammunition that you can put all over the vehicle if you feel like it. It also has a bunch of ERA over it, which gives you really good chemical protection and pretty much no kinetic protection, unfortunately. And when it comes to the armor itself, you're looking at the very much standard M60 A1 kind of deal. I don't think it's an A3, but I might be wrong about that. It could be that. So on the breech itself, it's pretty poorly armored, but on the cheeks of the turret, obviously they have a really good curve to them, so it's going to be quite hard to get through them. The upper glacis shouldn't be too hard to punch through with most meta rounds at 8.7, and the lower glacis shouldn't be too hard to punch through either, but sometimes can be a bit tricky. But with the additional ERA, that means that it can be a little bit better protected against chemical rounds. Against kinetic stuff like APFSDS, which is something you see quite a lot of these BRs, it's definitely not the easiest thing to defend against. But luckily, being a M60 platform, it has a pretty decent power to weight, even with all this extra weight on it, and also it has pretty decent killing power with the 105. This vehicle itself has a 750 horsepower engine in the booty for this 50-ton vehicle, means that it can motor around at 48, but it's going to be more around 30, 35 most of the time, with okay acceleration and decent reverse as well, which is pretty good. It looks like also it has this ready rack in the back, so just behind the loader. This will be really nice to keep that reload rate going. It has the standard 105mm reload rate that a lot of other vehicles have, which are around this BR with the 105s and the L7s and everything like that. And one of the things that this has, which a lot of other vehicles don't, is the smoke launchers. This is something that we've seen on the Magach in the American tree, and also one that Magach, by the way, in the American tree will eventually come as a GE premium for the Israeli tree. That was confirmed a few days ago. But these smoke launchers, where they can fire a ton of smoke grenades out of them, are super nice to use on the vehicle itself. Like you can see that it has 20 overall. So a lot of its survivability comes from the use of these smoke grenades. When we look at some of the other things that are on the vehicle, it does get the M111 APFSDS, which for 8.7 is completely fine. It works very well. It gets a stock heat, which kind of sucks, but a lot of the vehicles, unless you get up-tiered, still will get destroyed by the heat. You know, there's a lot of very mobile vehicles nowadays around these BRs, so stuff like stabilizers are much more useful instead of type of round you're firing, as long as you're not firing something like Hesh, like a Maniac. And Heat FS in general will get the job done against most of them. It does have a rangefinder, not a laser rangefinder, but a rangefinder, and that'll work fine. And also has pretty decent turret traverse and pretty decent gun handling overall for the gun itself. The vertical speed is actually not as good. I thought it was a lot better than this, but I'm guessing with all of the extra weight on this vehicle, it's definitely struggling with that. Now, one thing that this thing has, which you may have just noticed, which is completely substandard and makes the vehicle a lot harder to use in general, is the fact, for some reason right now, it doesn't have a stabilizer. Now, maybe this changes. I'm not sure about the vehicle's history, but I've got a feeling by the time if we get to this standard of M60, even with Israel, this thing should have a stabilizer. When you look at equivalent vehicles in the US tree, such as the AOS or the Rise, these vehicles all have stabilizers from the AOS upwards, even the TTS, which is sat there. For some reason, this Magach 6B doesn't have one, so this is going to cripple it as a vehicle at 8.7. because many people don't know how to play these vehicles without stabilizers. And the thing is, it doesn't have like a lot of the niceties that other vehicles have. Like when it comes to the Brennus even went down in BR. I don't think it should have gone down in BR. I think the Brennus is a fantastic vehicle, but it went down in BR to 8.3 along with the B2, and the major reason is because it doesn't have a stabilizer, and people struggle to use it when it doesn't have a stabilizer. But this thing, on top of, you know, even though it doesn't have a stabilizer, it's got really good APF SDS, it's got thermals, it's got the 20mm coaxial as well, it has a laser rangefinder, it has all of these things, and it still went down to 8.3 because people don't know how to play these vehicles without stabilizers. And this vehicle, the Magach 6B at 8.7 at the moment, doesn't have a stabilizer. So either this thing goes down in BR or it gains a stabilizer, and then we can actually start seeing it as a proper vehicle. It does also have the standard Israeli thing of adding a bunch of guns to the top of it, so it has a 50 cal in the center and then two 30 cals on the side plus a coaxial 30 cal, so that would be quite nice for marking targets and also being able to go after stuff like helicopters, because the AAs that the Israeli gets right now are pretty good. You know, the Macbeth and then the Hovet. You'll be using the Hovet with this lineup, which is just an M163. So it'll be pretty good against helicopters, but it's nice to have, if you spawn in this thing first, you'll be able to, you know, 50 cal and 30 cal a helicopter with no real issues, which will be quite nice for it. But overall, just the lack of such a key component for a vehicle like this is just really putting me off it compared to a bunch of other ones. Like I've played vehicles around these BRs which don't have stabilizers before. The AMX-10, for example, the Mars, which is in the French tech tree, the obviously, you know, the Brennus, and the other vehicle which is next to it, the B2, the AMX-30, all of these. And without a stabilizer, they are tougher to play, not impossible to play, but give you a unique playstyle, but you normally get a benefit from not having a stabilizer. This thing doesn't get any benefit. It's just an M60 with APF SDS at the BR of, you know, at the BR of 8.7. So I've got a feeling that this thing is missing a bunch of stuff. You know, it does have the fire control of the commander, so at least it has that, which is nice. But it doesn't, as I said, doesn't have the stabilizer, doesn't have the laser rangefinder, doesn't have the thermals. It has the smokes, you know, which are really nice because they pop at 4 at a time. So you can actually get, you know, you can get like 5 smoke drops, which is really, really nice for the vehicle. But apart from that, like you're looking at a very, very bog standard vehicle here that doesn't really do too much stuff great. And the M60 is a good vehicle in game. It's a very good MBT. It's here in many forms, and they all play quite similar to each other, just with slight key differences. And I think looking at this one right now, it's looking super rough. And the M48s that are also in the Israeli tree, you're basically looking at them and looking at the APCR stock grind. And then if you get through all them, you're like, okay, now it's time to enjoy the M60s. You get the more standard M60, the Magach 6, and it's like, okay, this is all right. Then you get to this one, and you're just going to get beaten up by 9s and 9.3s, and you're going to be like, why am I here? Am I here just to suffer? Am I here just for other people's gain? Am I just here to exist, trying to grind through this Israeli tree? Like, what is the point in this? And so if there isn't changes to this vehicle, or if there isn't additions, or there isn't like a BR change, like this thing is going to be super rough to play, just because of, you know, the meta of the game and how it works. And that's not going to fundamentally change in about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks when this update comes out. So hopefully something is fixed about this in some way. I'm sure there'll be changes to it, and I'm sure there'll be things that come on. It looks like a vehicle that I will enjoy, just not at the BR that it's at right now. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Merciless Reaper, Jerry Provolt, Mega Dino King, Professor X1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Eugen's Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, Moxie, B. Young, and Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.